Good evening and welcome to SPORLITIKS, where sports and politics mix and mingle. I'm Stacey Johnson. Joining me tonight is Aguna, the voice of reason.
Voice of reason.
Keith, the constitutional conservative. And my cousin Todd. We've got a quick show for you tonight because it is the presidential debate and we want to be out of here in time for you to be able to watch it live. Vice President Harris and former President Trump debate in Philadelphia, best place in the world. The Eagles won in the first NFL game in Brazil.
Yup.
Georgia school shooting suspect was troubled by a broken family, taunting at school, his father said, as they were both arraigned. Phoenix police officer, sad. Phoenix police officer dies days after a suspect is charged with shooting two officers. Todd in tennis, he'll talk about the U.S. Open. Former President Trump's rambling answer to a child care question is reviewed. And more, if we can fit it in. First up, Aguna, you were going to discuss Tyreek Hill and the NFL, correct?
Sure, why not?
All right, let me share the video. And then after that, we'll talk. Aguna, you'll talk about it.
I'm getting arrested.
Miami-Dade police releasing new body camera video that shows what happened Sunday when officers pulled NFL star Tyreek Hill from his vehicle, shoved him to the ground, and put him in handcuffs, not far from the stadium.
It went from 0 to 60 immediately, man.
The Miami Dolphins wide receiver sitting down with NBC News, along with his wife, speaking out on the incident that started when he was pulled over on Sunday.
You're speeding. Don't knock on my window like that.
Why you have it up? I have to knock to let you know I'm here. That way you can lower it and talk to you.
Just get my ticket, bro, so I can go. I'm gonna be late, gang. Do what you gotta do.
In the video, you can see Hill roll up his window. He's ordered to lower it again before the situation quickly escalates.
Get out of the car. Get out of the car right now.
The seat go down. So it's almost like you got to push up to get out. You know what I'm saying?
When we tell you to do something, you do it.
That officer, obviously he was having either a bad day or he just wanted to have a power trip over me.
Miami-Dade police have ordered an internal affairs investigation and placed one officer on administrative duties, but did not ID them. Hours later, Hill scored an 80-yard touchdown in the Dolphins' season-opening win.
Oh, he's a ghost!
Celebrating like this after the TD with a mock handcuffing on the field.
What message were you hoping to send with that celebration?
Like I said, man, you got to learn how to laugh and have a good time.
Some of Hill's teammates stopped to help. Lineman Calais Campbell was also temporarily detained. Hill believes the incident could have ended differently if he were not a superstar athlete.
Worst case scenario would have been shot, or either you would have been locked up.
The Dolphins have called the police officers' actions towards players, quote, overly aggressive and violent. A representative for the union that is representing the officer on administrative duties says that Hill was, quote, very uncooperative, and that led to his being, quote, redirected to the ground. The union adding the officer who was put on administrative duties is a roughly 25.
Jesus Christ.
Okay, Aguna, we'll start with you. And then, welcome to SPORLITIKS, where sports and politics mix and mingle. JP, just a second. We'll start with Aguna.
Yeah, I mean, this is a bad look. I get it. Hill was like, he mouthed off to the cops. But, there's one person who's a football player. The other person is a law enforcement officer, right? And so when you get an officer in this situation, yeah, he's within his purview to do what he did, but was that really the smart thing to do? I mean, you'd hope that they would de-escalate. I mean, the guy's driving a $300,000 car. Doesn't mean he's above the law, but it's one thing to talk back and forth. The officer pulled him out the car. I mean, it's one thing for him to tell him to roll down the window. He didn't roll down the window. You hear Tyreek Hill say, he's like, I rolled back up the window because I don't want people to film and start doing all this stuff because of who he was. So it kind of escalated quickly and became this back and forth. Could he have cooperated and avoided the whole thing? Probably. But, you know, a lot of times in these situations, these law enforcement officers who clearly they have full command of the situation, they're doing things in order to exert power and authority over someone. And what I mean by that, yeah, he could have him detained. He could ask him to exit the vehicle, but to pull him out the vehicle, put him on the ground. If you hear what the officer is saying, you know, he's saying, oh, he started to basically exert his authority over him above and beyond the moving violation or the seatbelt violation. Because at the end of the day, you just give him a ticket and move on. Now we're sitting here explaining and having to understand. I think it was very poor judgment on the officer's part to have this as a hill to die on and have his life, a 25-year career altered because you want to go toe-to-toe with a celebrity unnecessarily by, and again, it's on film. Now you look at Calais Campbell, who came over and was trying to intervene and was just talking. They put him in handcuffs. So you're constantly seeing, okay, yeah, you had to handle the situation. When does it become a complete, you know, going overboard, being aggressive, and trying to beat people into submission? You can clearly see that the cops were trying to more so prove a point than actual give them a ticket and let them move on. You know, at the end of the day, I mean, no, it's like, no, I want to exert things on you. And these are some of the issues that people have with law enforcement. Instead of trying to de-escalate, they escalate. Instead of trying to, you know, just resolve the situation, they want to take it to a point where they want to arrest, detain, and take you to jail when clearly it was a miscommunication. Now, yes, Tyreek Hill has some accountability here. If he would have cooperated, it may not have gotten to that point. But at the same time, why did you even have to get to that point? Did the officers really have to? Why is it that we're always talking to the police as if, you know, we have to, you know, they have to like be fearful of their lives just because you're encountering law enforcement, right? So I think there's fault on both sides.
Okay.
Because the officers are professionals, they could have done more to de-escalate and not even get it to that point.
Keith, thank you,
Yes.
Aguna. Keith,
Yes.
your opinion.
Well, there's an old saying in Proverbs, the book of Proverbs, a soft answer turns away anger, but harsh words stir up strife. So in other words, sometimes you have to be wise in how you answer. The cop, first of all, the window was up. And from what I heard from the tape, the window was up, what I saw from the tape, and you couldn't see inside the car. So I don't know what the officer was thinking, but there's no way that he could see who was sitting at the driver's seat because the window was tinted. That's number one. Number two, the guy was answering the officer. He was yelling out. He said, "Don't knock on my window like that. Don't knock on my window like that." Well, that's not a very good way to, answer a cop. You know, so you leave it, and the cop ended up saying, do what we tell you to do. Okay, so that kind of, those words were stirring up escalation of force. And I do understand about escalation of force. I'm an expert when it comes to use of force. And a lot of times it's just the way the words are. You know, you get into words, just like we get on this show. And certain people start saying certain things, and the way they say it escalates more anger, and then people answer back. Simple as that. So,
but let me ask you this: he gave the officer his ID, so he rolled down the window, gave him his ID, which is
right.
Technically, all he should have done when the officer is instructing him. Now, again, there's purview within the law for the officer to have like reasonable suspicion, right? So if the officer is fearful of his life, want to see if he has a gun or something like, all that. But I don't. Again, it's poor judgment. It's like, okay, because he said that the reason why he rolled it up because he didn't want people to know who he was, because it would have caused a bit more of a commotion than it was going to have to. And of course, he ended up doing that.
So let me get JP in here. JP,
how you doing, Nas?
My name is JP. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. So the first thing that comes across, and I'm going to be really interested to hear what Cousin Todd says about this, but Colin Kaepernick was right. Like, that's the conclusion you come to. We have a severe systemic police abuse problem in America. They escalate situations where great angels would tell you you probably need to de-escalate. That's what your so-called training manual and all of the classes you went to says you guys are experts in, but you never seem to show that in reality. And this thing with Tyreek Hill, remember, they know who Tyreek Hill is. When you work a football stadium as a policeman, that's a job to where you're signing up for it, you're choosing to do it. So you're at the stadium and you know Tyreek Hill's car because you work there and you live, you know who this high profile person is on NFL opening weekend for a home game for the Dolphins. So the idea that, you never know, somebody might have a weapon, so you want them to raise their window in case they might do, this is Tyreek Hill. You see him all the time. The problem was he didn't show you the proper level of deference, and because of that, your ego wouldn't allow him to appear as if he was in control of the situation. So you had to quickly let him know, and that's where we get into the abusive stuff that's hard to justify, where you're talking about a guy says, hey, I just had knee surgery, and the guy says, get down, and pushes him down on the curb to show, again, authority. When Calais Campbell rose up, NFL Man of the Year, you can read his bona fides online, what he's done in the community, and as a person, well-known peacekeeping fella. Problem is, he's 6'8" and 320 pounds. So they immediately got intimidated when Calais rose up. So they want to handcuff Calais just to let him know we're controlling this scene. So again, these guys will never work that area again. One of them, this may escalate a little further, because when you think about who the owner of the Miami Dolphins is and the amount of money that's involved, certain things aren't allowed. You can do that to a regular citizen. We wouldn't get this body cam footage for, possibly 90 days. They have to do a freedom of information request. A lawyer would have to put pressure on, and then finally we get footage of it. But it wouldn't be a national story because you wouldn't have a star like Tyreek Hill involved in it. So overall, the worst case scenario is these cops, one of them gets fired, and possibly they go to Tampa and become a cop again. But working 25 years doesn't mean 25 years of good service. It may be 25 years of what we just saw on video. So that's the other part. The benefit of the doubt, they haven't earned. Way too many Americans give them. And this small little video with a celebrity, you got to see how they can escalate tensions and create a dangerous environment for anybody that was around. Now, there were Dolphin fans out there, people with their cameras out, and that's why the police were on the back foot with this situation. Their statement, not as aggressive as police departments normally give. And the Dolphin statement, I think, where they call the behavior deplorable, I think that lets you know where this is going with Drew Rosenhaus, the agent of Tyreek Hill, and this owner, Stephen Ross of the Miami Dolphins. Like, this may end up being a lawsuit and a bad situation for Miami PD.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cousin Todd.
Okay, I agree.
And cousin Todd, it's 8:13. We only have a few minutes. You can't talk forever.
Of course not, because Steven is not talking. But nevertheless, I agree with everything Nas said. And they wanted him to be submissive, and that just wasn't going to happen. And because you're not submissive, because you don't act slave-like, you're going to get it. And these boys weren't even white. Huh? Yeah, I said it. They weren't even white. So how dare you, foreigner, come over here and see? But they've learned how to treat blacks before they even got over here off of the boat. And so they thought they could get away with this because he's black after all, even though he's a millionaire. So what? He's still black. He's beneath me, is what they think, because this is what they were taught. Because you know what? I'm going to be very honest with you. They're just blacks. Even though they play football, I mean, who cares? They're still black.
Why are you holding your nose like that?
Well, I was imitating white people. So anyway, this is what happens when they come over here and get these jobs as police. They think they can pretend to be white.
Thank you. You're going to have to sum your stuff up. You can't
and
talk
treat
the whole
black
show.
people the way Keith thinks blacks should be treated. But unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. And he had no business telling him to get out of his car. And this goon is half amnesiac most nights, so you can't listen to him. And he was probably concerned about the gun that may have been in his car that was in his mouth. Get out of my face. There should never be a situation where a cop is telling you to get out of your car for a traffic stop, speeding ticket, run a red light, or run a stop sign, whatever. You don't get out of your car for those. And that always escalates. It's always a bad idea. Give him the ticket for what you think he did. But no,
don't
get
knock
out
on
of
my window like that. Don't
yes.
knock on my window like
don't
that.
do that, you dumb black loogie. You can't
don't
afford
knock
to pay
on my
for
window
it.
like that. Yeah, don't knock
Anyway,
on my window like that.
All right, thank you. I gotta move on.
No. You can't let Keith, the devil, interrupt me and then say move on. Now listen, don't knock on my window like that. I can tell you
it's
that.
8:16. You've been talking
bum,
3 minutes.
You bum. You can't afford this car, and you know how much this car costs, and you banging on my window like you're crazy. Don't do that. But you think the black boy is a slave, so he's not allowed to say, hey, don't bang on my window like that. He can say that. That's nothing. And so you don't tell him to get out of his car and lay on the ground because you've been insulted by him. No, he doesn't have to get out of his car. And that cop should be thrown in jail for making him get out of the car. Talking about we could have had a gun in his car. That's nonsense. And Goon, I can't wait till you get pulled over.
Thank you. Can't go on and on. You've been going on and on.
Like that's going to happen.
Well, Colin Kaepernick was right. That's what we learned.
That's exactly right.
So, Aguna, go on to the Eagles game against the who those cheeseheads.
Packers.
And
how
then
dare you disrespect that franchise?
And then I want to talk about, because I did watch the Steelers versus the Dirty Birds of the South. Go ahead, Aguna.
Yeah, it was old man Cousins down there. Yeah, so I mean the game, it started off kind of rough. Jalen Hurts again. I mean, it's a first week, so you expect that quarterback play across the NFL this weekend was very rusty at best. So Jalen wasn't by far not the only quarterback to struggle.
Ooh, look at the excuse making.
He did struggle. He threw some bad interceptions. He made some very poor decisions. So hopefully that gets better. But it was a good win. The field conditions down there in San Paulo were horrendous. But Saquon did have 3 touchdowns, so that was a great acquisition. Mind you, he only had 1 3-touchdown game in 75 games as a Giant. But his first game as an Eagle, he had 3 touchdowns. So that should go tell you right there. Hopefully he'll stay healthy. But it was a great opening. I mean, again, week 1, Friday night on Peacock. We got the victory. So I'm not going to complain too much, but there are some areas of improvement that need to happen, especially if, they expect to make a run and have a 1 or 2 win playoff games, stuff like that. So I'm not going to panic yet, but I am happy football is back. I'm happy the Eagles won. I'm happy we're 1-0. And so, the future is bright for now, knock on wood. Again, it's week to week in the NFL. But it was a great game for Saquon. The Eagles defense need to get it together. Still some problems there. And then I think Jordan Love got hurt at the end of the game.
That's enough for the Eagles.
I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. Okay. And then Jordan Love did get a little nicked up to fantasy owners' angst at the end of that game. But Green Bay is a good team. Hopefully, we may see them again in the playoffs if they make it. But yeah, it was good. It was a good opening day. Should I talk about the rest of the games? Patrick Mahomes,
if they make
Lamar Jackson. There were some good matchups week 1. But yeah.
Wait a minute. Before you go into that, I want to talk about Jordan Love. The Packers are preparing for Malik Willis to start as quarterback for Jordan Love. It seems as though, they won't put
Malik Willis
Love on IR.
Yeah, they didn't put Love on IR because they want him to come back in less than 6 weeks.
Right.
But at the same time, Malik Willis has only been on the team for two weeks, right? So
2 weeks too long.
Yeah, and there's a reason why Tennessee got rid of him. Again, he hasn't been in that system. Unfortunately for the Packers, they were one of those teams with that, they were hot last year. They got all the way to the divisional round, right? They beat Dallas, of course, thank God, in Dallas. So they were expecting good things. And so for them to lose Jordan Love for an extended period of time in that division, again, you have the Detroit Lions, who look really good. You know, they came back. Well, they almost blew it, but they beat the Rams, so they had a good opening day. You have the Chicago Bears, who came back and beat the Tennessee Titans, right? Then you also have Minnesota, who, you know, completely. Who did they play? I think, did they play the Giants, or who
they beat the Giants?
Yeah. So I mean, those teams that won in that division played mediocre teams or horrible teams, but it's going to be a tight divisional race nonetheless, right? So
right. But stick to the quarterback point though, Guna. Quarterbacks now are paid so much; it's difficult to have a backup that's really of any quality.
Right.
And teams are kind of bracing and saying, "Hey, if our number one guy gets hurt, you know, the year is lost." That's kind of the scenario all NFL teams are in, especially the ones with a good quarterback.
And that's a problem.
So,
and that's a problem to spend all that money on a quarterback. I think that's wrong. Don't spend all of the money. Save a little bit of it so you can save some of your.
But do you really have a choice? I mean,
you gotta see choice.
If the market $250 million is the going rate for a quarterback, you know, 100 and some odd million guaranteed. I mean,
either you pay it or somebody else pays it, but they're gonna get the money. So yeah.
Okay,
right.
so JP, you want to talk about what happened to your Dirty Birds of the South against the Steelers?
Everything is going according to plan. Everything is going perfectly. I did not approve.
You planned to lose the first week in the NFL. That was the plan.
What's his name was going to get benched. What's his name is going to get benched, and it's going to be
Aguna sees it. The plan is going according. It's going well. We didn't plan on having this old man with one Achilles come on our team, but somehow he was able to finagle us out of some money, and hopefully by week 4 we can get rid of that old man and insert the young guy, and then we're ready to go. But in order for that to happen,
after week 2. It may happen after week 2 when you come to Philadelphia.
The old man has to continue to play very badly in order for us to get him out of there. And for $100 million, we got beat by field goals. So maybe it's a possibility, man. I'm just trying to get Kirk up out of here. That's all.
A field goal, 18-10 is not one field goal.
I know. That's a little bit
more
than
field goal.
No. We got beat by all field goals. That's the point. They just
that's right.
Oh, okay. All right.
It was embarrassing. It's terrible.
Yeah. All right. Anything else with the NFL? Because we're going to have to close up. Because like I said, we have a short show tonight because of the debate. Anything with the NFL before we move on to Todd and tennis?
I mean, thank God football's back. We got some great matchups coming up this weekend. Eagles play the Dirty Birds opening Monday Night Football. So it may be the Kirk Cousins sunset game, all things willing, because I will be at that game in Philadelphia to watch it live. Hopefully that happens, but I don't know. Jalen Hurts was looking kind of shaky. So if he goes out there and does anything other than perfection, they're going to boo him out the stadium. I'm going to tell you that right now. It's going to be on Monday night, and they're going to be like a
You're going to be leading the boos, aren't you?
I'm gonna try to quiet the crowd, but they don't always listen to me. Even though I'm like the George Washington of Philadelphia Eagles fan.
If you go to the wrong snack counter at that stadium, you will be beat up. And going to get out of here with that, man. We know the Philly Eagle fans.
It was not in Philly. I beg to differ. Come on, man. They're gonna have a statue in that stadium. So
but one NFL thing. If this Tyreek Hill story took another turn and he was arrested in front of that stadium, and the cops, of course, they talk to their friends, it gets on the radio. How many bets would have been made with the idea of that inside information? Dude, we're in a different world now with legalized gambling all over the country. You think about that.
Yeah.
If Tyreek Hill was arrested, how many cops would have had their retirement paid off because they would have had inside information even Vegas would have had in real time?
You're right about that. So it's funny because all these conspiracy theorists on this show, like Keith and Steven, they're worried about other things like Antifa storming the Capitol dressed as Trump supporters, but they don't see things that are more realistic like that, where, you may have a situation where you can influence. Because you go on television nowadays, how many sports betting commercials do you see?
Every show.
Every show is a sports. And so think about it. So you're making prop bets real time. And I mean, you can bet on almost anything, from touchdowns to who's gonna, backups catching catches. It's all kind of stuff. So you're right. I mean, if refs
Thank
back
you.
in the day
Thank
bet
you.
on the games, you can only imagine what everybody else is gonna do. With the amount of data and influence happening real time today. So that's an interesting
Thank
point.
you. Thank
Well, that
you.
has to
Cousin
do with
Todd.
individual greed. Individual greed.
Cousin Todd. Todd in tennis. U.S.
Isn't
Open,
that
Cousin Todd.
the epitome of Donald Trump? Isn't that the
epitome of all people, all men?
Okay. I'm going to deal with women first.
Oh no.
Okay, and you can't talk the whole show. We have a short
listen
show
at this
tonight.
crazy girl. What is it with you? Sabalenka beat Jessica Pegula in the U.S. Open Women's 7-5, 7-5. She beat her in straight sets. Now, Jessica Pegula's father is the owner of the Buffalo Bills football team.
Surprise.
And also the Sabres hockey team.
Oh, say that again. Say that again.
Surprise.
You gotta let Todd do it, man.
Okay,
They
Todd
take
does
the
it better.
food right out of your mouth, Cousin Todd.
So her family is independently wealthy, not just from tennis. Okay, now the men's semifinal. Taylor Fritz won over Tiafo, which I hated that. 4-6, 7-5, 4-6, 6-4, 6-1. They split the first two sets. Then Francis won the third set, and then Fritz won the last two. Sinner then played Taylor and beat Taylor. Taylor's the American, and Sinner's the Italian. Taylor lost to Sinner 6-3, 6-4, 7-5 straight sets. So that's a lot of people were there. Did you want?
Who won the men's and who won the women's
Oh
overall?
my gosh! I just said it. I'll go back.
Sabalenka
No, don't.
won the women's.
How many touchdowns, Todd?
Sinner
How many
won the
touchdowns
men's.
do they have?
Stacy wasn't listening, but I'm interested in this Pegula girl. Now, wait a minute. Their daughter is actually
her father owns the best. Yes, she's been playing for a while too. And she almost beat. She almost won the finals, but just the other girl outplayed her. So so Jessica Pegula played Sabalenka, and Sabalenka won. All right, for the women's, and then for the men's, you had Skinner playing Taylor, and Taylor lost. Taylor's the American. Skinner is the Italian. You got that, Stacy?
Right. So didn't Skinner also win the Australian Open?
Sinner, like
Sinner.
Keith Sinner. And for those out there, look up those Pegula parents. You're gonna see some interesting Jerry Springer-like activity within their marriage to get to this point. Woo! It's some messy tea, as the women would say.
Mm-hmm.
So did Jannik Sinner win the Australian Open?
This was the U.S. Open.
No, I said, did he win the Australian Open earlier this year?
Sinner, I think he did. I have to go back and look.
Okay.
All right.
So my point was, Todd, that you think I don't know what I'm talking about. And
you
think
don't.
I didn't know.
You
Sinner
don't know the difference between football and tennis.
Right. No, that's you. That's you. You don't know the difference between baseball and hockey. I, on the other hand, do. And for you to say,
hey,
I don't
we
know
only
what
have
you're
a short show. We've got to move on. We can't talk all night.
With the U.S. Open, and I know that
move on.
Yeah,
I know that Sinner won the Australian Open. Tells you what everyone thinks. You know nothing about a hockey puck going into a basketball.
Well, hold on, man. Which one of these tennis players are the next stars? Because we had to wait for so long for the old folks to age out. Nadal and Federer and all these guys.
Excuse me.
So who are the new? Come on, man. Nadal and them still
Well,
in the league?
Yes, they're
See, that's
still
the
there.
analysis we want, Todd.
That's my
That's the
favorite player.
analysis we want. I don't all this little reading from your phone. We could all do that. You're gonna come on the show like a black lumberjack. You need to have some facts.
Let me just say, I wrote this
We
down.
can Google that stuff too. Now we got smartphones. Is that an iPhone or
Nadal
an
is still
Android?
good enough to win though. Like some tournaments, he's still like competitive.
Nadal is good enough to win because Nadal just got hurt and he's trying to rehab himself. But I thought he should have played this year. But I think he'll play next year. If he doesn't, then he'll retire. But he's got one more year left in him. And Nadal is still very good. The only two people that can give him problems are Djokovic and the new guy that's him, but 21 years
You're talking
old.
about Sinner or Alcaraz or Medvedev
Let me tell.
or Rublev.
Now, see, she's trying to prove to you all that I read some names off of a piece of paper.
She Googled it, Todd.
Right.
That's all we need to do. We got smartphones too. We can read.
You best to.
At least most of us. Steven's not on the show, so those of us
All right,
on
we
here
got to
can
move on.
read.
I'm sorry, we
Right.
have to leave sports and we have to move on to politics because
Alcaraz,
we're running
by
a
the
tight.
way. Alcaraz is the newcomer. Coco Golf for the girls.
Coco Golf. I love Coco Golf the way Todd loved Serena Williams. If you say Coco, I'm on it like Todd was on Serena. I love Coco Golf.
Keith loves Serena too.
All right, I got to move on. We're going to move on to the Georgia school shooting. Sad, horrible event. I'll play this and then we'll get Keith's comments.
That should be interesting.
The school shooting and his father both making court appearances on murder charges after the rampage that left 4 dead at Appalachian High School. ABC's Faith Abube is in Winder, Georgia with the latest. Faith, good morning.
Good morning to you, Whit. This is only the second case we've seen here in this country where a parent has been arraigned on felony charges after their child allegedly carried out a deadly school shooting. Victims I've been talking to here on the ground tell me they're glad to see the accountability extend to the suspect's father as well.
This morning, a stunning moment in a Georgia courtroom. Father and son appearing back to back, both charged in connection with a shooting that killed 2 students and 2 beloved teachers at Appalachian High School.
All right, good morning, sir. Are you Mr. Colt Gray?
Yes, sir. Colt Gray, the 14-year-old, sitting just feet away from the families of his alleged victims.
You are charged with 4 counts of felony murder.
Moments later, his father, 54-year-old Colin Gray, brought in shackled. Rocking back and forth, the judge charging him with multiple felonies, second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter among them. Investigators say Gray knowingly allowed his underage son to have a gun, and sources tell ABC News he gave the teenager the assault-style rifle used in the shooting as a Christmas gift.
I can see the elements that prosecutors are trying to put together to find liability. That if you miss red flags, that can land you, the parent, in jail.
It's now the second case in the U.S. where a parent has been charged with involuntary manslaughter after their child was accused of carrying out a deadly school shooting. Karen McDonald prosecuted the historic cases against Jennifer and James Crumbley, who were both convicted after their son killed 4 of his fellow students at his Oxford, Michigan high school in 2021.
I think instead of focusing on whether we should be charging parents, I think our focus really needs to be on the eliminating the need for it.
Ashley Gosa is the senior at Appalachian High School. She says she watched a gunman bang on her classroom door.
I can hear the gunshots plain as day. Every time I'll try to sleep at night, I can see Miss Army or, Coach Aspinwall, or just hear the sounds or the cops yelling at him. Yeah, it'll be a while before I can get over that.
Her mother, Bridget, says she wants accountability.
And again, he is 14 years old. So yes, his parents, just like the ones in Michigan, they were charged because they knew.
And Emma Angulo, the mother of 14-year-old Christian Angulo, devastated after her son was shot and killed, speaking out.
No merecía esto.
He didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve to die like this, she says, adding, I miss him. I wish this was just a dream.
And neither the accused shooter nor his father entered a plea yesterday. The DA says more charges are coming for that accused shooter. A grand jury will hear this case next month. But Janae, the best news this morning, all 9 injured victims are expected to fully recover. Janae.
Okay. Should the parents be held liable, arrested, and arraigned like they are doing, Keith? We can't hear you. You're on mute.
That's a good question, because I have also a report that the mom of the shooter called the school 30 minutes before and told them that her son had a gun. Basically, they were not living together. The mom lived separate from the father. They had separated. So the boy lived with the father, but the mom somehow found out, and called the school, but nobody responded. So in that
They
case,
did so respond. You got that wrong, but I'll correct it.
They had the red flags up
They
already.
responded
And
to
yet
it.
they did not respond.
Dumb.
So if
They
they
did
didn't
so.
respond, then what I'm trying to say is that they need to
Stephen,
hold.
Stephen, you got to stop, Stephen.
They've got to
I'm
hold
talking
the.
to Todd.
Oh, that means that they have to hold the school responsible as well. So, hold everybody responsible. Everybody who knew, because of the red flags.
So you're not going to answer the question.
So if they had, now one thing you guys cannot dispute is that red flags. This kid the red flags were up, so they already knew about this kid.
Did his
so if
father
that's
know?
the case, then let's drag everybody into court. Why don't you drag them all into court?
Are you going to answer
That's
the
all
question
I'm
she
saying.
asked you? Or
Okay, that's all he had to say. So go ahead, Cousin Todd.
Okay. Let me just correct him. Where'd you get that news from? Fox News?
No, I got it from Victory News. That's a Christian news outlet.
Okay, well,
they don't
Victory did not complete their assignment.
They did not lie. Victory is mine.
Okay, what happened was the school was notified, and then there was a boy with another name similar to his, and so there's 2 boys now: the murderer and with another boy with the name similar to his. Neither one of them were in school. They went looking for him, but the boy with the similar name had his backpack there, so they took his backpack to the office, and that was it. The other boy never showed up. And about 30 minutes later is when he came in and started shooting. So that part, you must not have read that part. You may have stopped in the middle of the story.
And there were no red flags on him, right? No red flags about him in the past, right?
Keith,
Yes.
just be quiet for a second, man.
So a year prior to, he made a threat to talking about shooting up a school. So the FBI and the police interviewed him, and they determined, because they're all white, that he was only joking around. I mean, come on. He's only a kid. What's he going to do? He's only 14. He's great. He's a great kid. No problems. So they didn't do anything. And so then his father, after that, is what I'm hearing. Now, this is in court, so we'll figure this out. Gave him a gun for Christmas after that incident.
Right. After the FBI came and interviewed him.
And
so,
determined
the FBI can't just come. Isn't that what, First Amendment advocates would say? The FBI, all of a sudden, there's a red flag. Now they're going to come and detain you under just suspicion.
Right.
You can't do that.
That's right.
And laws. They had no pretense, freedom of speech. You can't go in there and just detain somebody.
Right.
Now,
but they
had
wanted
the red
to,
flags, but again.
Okay, but they wanted to
more
interview him and see if he was mentally stable and whatnot. And so they're all white.
But you can't hold everyone culpable like the parents. The father
wait.
Gun
we'll get there, Guna. We'll get there. Hold
yes.
on, let him finish. We'll get there.
So anyway,
that's because Todd takes about a half hour.
I do not.
To make his point.
These people won't stop. That's Aguna and Keith.
All right.
Anyway,
go ahead, Paul Bunyan, finish out.
So whatever that means. So now
he's talking about your drag.
I don't know why. And you look awfully dusty. I'm just saying, you might need to powder down or something. Aguna.
Oh,
Hey, my bad. Hey,
No.
look, I am who I am. I'm a savage.
Okay, so now, the father bought him a gun supposedly after that incident at 14 years old. That was the father's fault. Number one. Number two, somehow the mother had talked to him prior to and was suspicious that he might do something. So then to call the school, and now that he's just Keith, of course, trying to blame it on the school. I blame the school as well, but not to the extent where they should be brought up on charges. It's just that they're all white. And when you're white, you're great kids. You're not considered murderers unless you're black, of course. Then you're a thug and a hoodlum and a gangster and a gang member. But if you're white, you're just a teen. And so
Okay,
I'm
thank you. I
glad
gotta move on to
I'm
other
glad they're
people. You
charging
can't
the
talk the
father.
whole show.
I'm glad they're charging the father. Now, sometimes Nas didn't like this too much when it happened before, but because Nas was thinking this is going to escalate, and you're next, black people. But and I agree with that part, but I don't know if I'm totally against that, because when you hear of these situations where blacks have shot up a school or a store right next to a school, I don't care if those children and their parents go to jail, because it's getting ridiculous now. And they're getting younger and younger, 14, 16, 17, and they're just shooting up the people at a bus stop.
Okay,
Don't you
thank
know
you.
you're going
Thank
to
you. You
hit
gotta
some
stop.
innocent
You've been
person?
talking for 10 minutes. Thank
Okay.
you. Aguna
Oh
and then
God,
Yeah,
I
JP.
gotta find a show
they've
that
been
I can
having
get
long
on.
discussions, like in places like Baltimore, where truancy and stuff is rampant, and they want to start, instead of releasing kids to the custody of their parents, they're going to start finding their parents or hauling the parents into jail and doing things like that in order to hold them accountable for their child's behavior. Now, I mean, I have kind of mixed reservations about this, just because at the end of the day, some of these kids, I mean, there's no controlling them. It's hard for parents to even, at some point, these kids are young adults and they have their own minds. But for the father to, after the FBI came and said all this, and all of a sudden he turns around and he buys them a gun, and it was a lot of dysfunction going on. And trust me, for them to arrest him, they probably had reasonable suspicion and evidence to connect directly, either through text messages, whatever data they have, through online searches, to say that, the father was well aware of his son's mental health or whatever is going on, and yet he still accommodated him by getting him a firearm and giving him access. And then, so I don't know if it's going to go as far as a felony charge. I think there may be some involuntary manslaughter or some type of liability when it comes to negligence associated with this. But to charge the father with murder, I think that, is a little stretch.
Second degree murder, not first.
Thank you.
Hey,
JP.
Stacy,
Yeah,
can I say one more thing?
No, you can't.
Where's your video, Keith?
Oh, I have it, but I got to read you something real quickly. It's I just want to
I'm
do
on camera, Keith.
Sir,
yeah,
can
no,
you
I
just
don't
wait?
need to be on camera.
Can-
No,
can-
just
Well, yeah, you do.
Can you wait?
Roll
your
your
turn?
window down. Roll your window down.
Can
no,
you
it's
wait
just
your
like
turn?
Roll your
now.
window down, Keith.
Can you wait your turn?
No,
You
I just
can
want to
do
do
it.
this real quick
Okay,
before you
just
get to
wait.
Nas.
Wait a minute,
Wait your
Keith.
turn, man.
Keith,
Yeah.
wait a minute. Let JP, and then I'm gonna come back to you, Keith, and then put your video on. Go ahead, JP.
Well, I can't do.
So first of all, I am not Nas. I am JP. And cousin Todd kind of
I
alluded to.
just said JP.
Shut
I
up,
was just
Stacy. You
messing with
can't
Keith.
talk the whole show. Go
I was just
ahead.
messing with-
Go
I was
ahead,
just messing with
JP.
you. Thank you, sir. So cousin Todd kind of predicted what I was going to say, and it's kind of more in agreement with Aguna. I don't want to extend those kind of police powers to the state. I don't think the state should be able to charge you for something criminal that your son did. We're not talking about sophisticated people here. The guy sits down for an FBI interview with his son, and there's no lawyer present. It's just him and the cop, and the lawyer just him and the cop and his son just shooting the S, where he's like, yeah, I'm trying to teach him about hunting. He got his first deer this year, But something like that, that's too far, you know. And I just wanted to make sure. And then the cop, he's trying to be reasonable because he knows, as Aguna said, he doesn't have the police powers to detain the kid. But he's asking, like, look, did you make those statements that people are saying you made? And when they looked at his Discord chat, they found out he was in a Discord with people who were talking about shooting up a school. So that's where you get into this kid, was severely damaged and out of control. And, the terrible thing is, I think we're losing track of who the murderer is. The kid is the murderer. This is the person who needs to be punished. I don't want to extend that to the parents. I think it's a bad idea. I think it's a bad legal precedent, and I think it'll only get worse. But ultimately, man, these are not sophisticated people. He bought that boy a gun for Christmas after all of this. So this is not a smart man. I don't think he should be charged for being stupid. But
okay, thank you.
Let's not blame the school. They did their due diligence. The kid wasn't there. What did you want him to do? And to Keith's raggedy point about, well, see, red flag laws don't work. If an incident happens, that doesn't mean a law or a provision doesn't work. It just means that it was outside of that provision and the thing still happened. There is no ironclad law that removes the possibility of something bad happening forever. Like, that's not possible. So to even bring up, well, see, red flag laws don't work. No, they give you an idea about doing police work to finding out how you can stop something like this from happening. And we'd rather have a chance of stopping it than not. Sorry.
Thank you. Go ahead, Keith.
But I don't think you can just give ignorance as an excuse for the father.
It's very important that I say this, is that I agree with Nas, what he just said. And I didn't say it the way he did, but, obviously Nas has been reading his Bible, because God only holds individuals who commit the certain act of aggression. He holds them responsible, not the person who may have told you to do it. So anyway, as I go from there, I just wanted to read this. This is Annie Brown, his sister, who is the sister of the shooter, suspect mother. It says here, Marcy Gray shared a text. It says messages with the Washington Post, which confirmed that Marcy had called the school the morning of the attack and told a counselor about an extreme emergency involving her teenage son. So they could have done something at that point. They could have taken him out of class, and they could have done what needed to be done. However,
that's what. Did you not listen to what Cousin Todd said? Did you not listen to what Cousin Todd said?
That's the way it goes.
Correction for the listeners out there. As Cousin Todd already laid out, he searched the school and found out the child was not in school at the time. He was a delinquent. He showed up later in the day. So you can't put that on the school.
But he's still,
when they didn't have him in school.
Listen to Keith. Why do you keep saying that?
You're lying. Sorry.
What are you?
But that's source for this was Victory News. Your source.
All right, gotta move on.
This afternoon, that one of the two
move on.
Shot on Tuesday in the line of duty died just a few hours ago.
Phoenix police telling us Officer Zane Coolidge passed away a short time ago, and Fox 10's Brian Webb is live tonight with more information about the officers that were shot.
Guys, we just saw that end of watch tweet from the Phoenix Police Department maybe 20 minutes ago that Officer Zane Coolidge had died from his injuries. Right about the same time, we saw a handful of motorcycle officers drive up to the back of the hospital here at Banner University, followed by a few police SUVs. Let me show you a picture of Officer Zane Coolidge again, and the other officer he was with that night, Matthew Haney. Coolidge was a 5-year veteran of the Phoenix Police Department. Officer Haney, a 2-year vet. Haney was released from the hospital over the past 24 hours. The men were shot on Tuesday, a few blocks from where I'm standing near 15th Street in McDowell. They were responding to reports of someone breaking into cars. They found the suspect, chased the suspect. 41-year-old Saul Ball is accused of shooting them. He remains behind bars on a $2 million bond. We've been hearing mixed messages about Coolidge all day long, really. Critical but stable condition, hopeful but also praying for a miracle. Then again, that end of watch tweet coming out just a few moments ago. There was a fundraiser set up for Officer Coolidge. It was set up for Tuesday. I haven't heard yet what will happen, if anything, to that. You can also donate online. We have those links on our website at fox10phoenix.com. Another update coming up tonight at 6. For now, live.
We're having a key.
That is devastating. We're thinking of the family of that officer. But, you know, the question, and that's so horrible. And the question becomes, was it worth it for that officer to go after someone who's breaking into cars when most of the time insurance, car insurance can cover those break-ins? Was it worth it for those officers to have to do that? It seems like to me, something like that, I don't think the officers should have to go after suspects breaking into cars and they aren't physically, you know, harming a person. It's a car. Car insurance will cover it.
Oh, Stacey, you
It's
sound
not worth that
ridiculous.
officer losing their life.
Stacey, look, it's a job
Heartbreaking.
you have to do. So then if you say that, you typical Trump supporter, then why do you have police at the banks? It's just money. I mean, they're insured. Come on. Why send the police to the bank just because there's a bank robber robbing it? You're ridiculous. You're a Trump supporter. You sound just like Keith and Stephen. So, yes, they have to go out when somebody's stealing cars and stuff. It's called the job of the police to serve and protect.
I don't like that they have to lose their lives over that. That's their life. That's horrible.
And just for context, in 2020, when we first started getting better data on not only shootings, but malfeasance within the department, the police have killed more people in 2022, more people in 2023, and right now we are on pace for more people in 2024. So, yeah, speak to the danger of the job and the thing that they signed up for, but let's also speak to the thing that they're also responsible for, which is a lot of fatal interactions with citizens.
That's right.
All right.
And if I could just say this last thing, Keith left, but Keith is crazy. And this tells you that Keith and Stephen are Trump supporters, along with Stacey, and they just don't listen to facts. Facts do not matter.
I went to Victory News.
Yeah. And so then I gave him the ending of that story that he started. I don't believe you. You're lying. I don't believe you guys. That's just crazy talk.
And no, it's not. It's deliberate, right? There's nothing. Nothing you can tell a Keith or a Stephen to convince them that what you're telling them is truthful, because they don't want to believe you, right? So the fact that you're trying to engage them is more crazier than what they're saying, is because they're entrenched in their ideology.
But can't they just look it up?
They don't look for
on.
information. They look for reinforcement of what they already think.
Right.
So,
Okay, I gotta move on. You know, we are short on time. There is a presidential debate in less than 7 minutes.
Child care is child care.
We're gonna
do tariffs. And
we're gonna see what former President Trump had to say as he answered this question, and then we'll go directly into our roundtable, starting with JP, Guna, then Todd, talking about what you expect from the presidential debate tonight. Watch this.
To make childcare affordable? And if so, what specific piece of legislation will you advance?
Well, I would do that. And we're sitting down, you know, I was somebody, we had Senator Marco Rubio, and my daughter Ivanka was so impactful on that issue. It's a very important issue. But I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, that because the child care is child care, there's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. But when you talk about those numbers compared to the kind of numbers that I'm talking about by taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to, but they'll get used to it very quickly. And it's not going to stop them from doing business with us, but they'll have a very substantial tax when they send product into our country. Those numbers are so much bigger than any numbers that we're talking about, including childcare, that it's going to take care. We're going to have, I look forward to having no deficits within a fairly short period of time, coupled with the reductions that I told you about on waste and fraud and all of the other things that are going on in our country, because I have to stay with childcare. I want to stay with childcare, but those numbers are small relative to the kind of economic numbers that I'm talking about, including growth, but growth also headed up by what the plan is that I just told you about. We're going to be taking in trillions of dollars, and as much as childcare is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kind of numbers we'll be taking in. We're going to make this into an incredible country that can afford to take care of its people, and then we'll worry about the rest of the world. Let's help other people. But we're going to take care of our country first. This is about America first. It's about make America great again. We have to do it because right now we're a failing nation. So we'll take care of it. Thank you. Very good question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
She didn't even clap.
We're going to start with JP. We'll start with JP, and then Aguna, and then Cousin Todd. JP.
Well, first thing first, this man is an idiot. Like, we've all known this. And whenever he's asked a direct question, he tends to start qualifying and adding in mantras and making ridiculous comparisons to things that are not at all alike, and just kind of eating up the speaking time so he can pass the mic and get to the next scenario. Look, I remember a scenario like this, man. As a kid, you're up there, you got you're doing the book report. You didn't read the book, so you try to BS your way through it. And that's what you see with him whenever he's asked the direct policy question. He'll immediately pivot to all of the, word salad we just heard right then, where he's talking about tariffs when they're asking him about families and childcare, which is an expense that everybody has to handle, which, squeezes a lot of people. And this dude just floats in the air everywhere except answering the direct question.
Let me ask you real quick. Did you hear what he said? He said, compared to childcare, he was talking about other costs that America has. And he was trying to put childcare into
you
a category.
You wouldn't accept that at a student's election board where somebody was running for student president. Like, you wouldn't accept that as an acceptable answer. It's a ridiculous answer. You're talking about one thing that has nothing to do with the other, along with your stupid idea of tariffs, which are going to bankrupt a lot of Americans, and you're turning that into somehow growth for GDP. So yeah, this is
I'm sorry, it's 8:57. You have 1 minute, Aguna.
What? You're the one that did that, Stacey.
Again, this is a guy that's running for the leader of the free world, right? And he's running for the leader of the free world, and he doesn't understand the basic economic principles, right? So on one hand, he's not answering the question about childcare because he fundamentally has no position on that. On the second hand, he's saying it's a relatively low cost. To who? Not to families. He's talking about to the government. Is the government going to pay for childcare? Why is he even making that comparison? And then on the third hand, you're talking about tariffs. He's telling you he's going to raise taxes. This is something that the Democrats always do. They raise taxes. They want to raise taxes, raise your taxes. But I'm very interested to hear from our fellow panelists what a tariff is. Tariff is a tax hike because all China does is say, oh, well, okay, you're going to charge us more. We're just going to pass it on to the importers. And the importers, what are the importers going to do? They're going to pass it on to you.
It's 8:58.
So at the end of the day, he's telling you, can I finish my point? Just finish my point.
No, you can't.
At the end of the day, he's telling you he's going to raise taxes on you. You can't complain about inflation on one hand and then do the exact thing that's going to raise prices at the kitchen table on the other end, which is raise tariffs.
Thank you. Keith.
Well, at least you admit that raising taxes is a burden on the American people. Because you just said it right there.
Just get to Trump. Get to Trump. Get to Trump.
Raising a tax on a foreign country, and they do business with us, then our company, that causes them to raise the prices. So there you go. I mean, you just admitted it. All right.
I've never denied that.
All I can say is that taxpayer-funded gender care and trans surgery for detained migrants. This is what it's all about. Now,
he's doing exactly what Trump did.
All right, Keith, that's not what we're talking about.
Talking about the subject.
Well, I was responding to Aguna. Taxes.
No, we were talking about former President Trump talking about child care.
Oh, child care. Well, that's not the federal government's responsibility. Child care. Come on. Child care should be back to the states, man. So that's not
Back
even a
to the
problem. That's not even.
states.
Yes, child care should be dealing with the individuals. If they can't afford it, let them have a state program or a city program or a
All
county
right, it's
program.
8:59.
Not a
Thank you,
federal
Cousin
government.
Todd. You have less than a minute.
So there.
I have less than a minute. Okay, well, I'm going to use my time to say, Keith, now you didn't answer the question. Why didn't President Trump, you think he's the president, so I'm calling him President Trump, say what you just said? Hey, the federal government has nothing to do with it. Why didn't he just say that? Instead of saying, well, I'm going to, the numbers that I'm dealing with are so astronomically high, and all that craziness. And the other thing is, you are off the beam. When I told you there's an ending to the story that you were telling, you just didn't read it. That there is hey baby, that there is a that they went to the classroom to find the boy. He wasn't there. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. So Google it. Just Google it.
Well, just because he wasn't there
he will
didn't
not.
mean that it didn't make my story wrong. It just says he wasn't there.
It actually
Nobody said your story was wrong. There's just more to it, which is what he said.
Okay, so let's leave it.
So are you trying to be right or are you trying to be informed? You're trying to be informed. Your point, the premise that you should blame the school because they didn't do anything. They did try to do something.
They did.
Okay.
He wasn't there.
Well, so I still agree with what Nas said. Like I said publicly, that Nas was correct when he said that you shouldn't hold accountable the people who did not do the shooting. It was the boy
Keith,
who
you
shot.
ran off the show. You pulled up the article like you were telling us something new.
Okay, thank you. We are out of time.
This is why there needs to be age limits on politicians because of stuff like what Keith is doing.
Excuse me, as you see what I'm showing on the screen is the start of the presidential debate. We don't want to miss it. We want to make sure everyone gets to see it tonight.
How many hours did she sit for that hair to sit like that, Stacey? How many hours you think she had to sit down for that hair to sit like that with her fine
The young
self?
lady right there?
Yes.
About 45 minutes.
45?
45 minutes.
I think they put some work in.
All right.
Now, all right, to our first responders in our communities, you make our lives livable. Thank you, thank you, thank you to the women and men of the U.S. military and all that you do, sacrificing your lives so that we are free to say whatever we choose on this show. We are forever indebted. On behalf of Aguna, the Nigerian modern Republican.
God bless America.
Bye, Ashy.
Hey, that's messed up.
I'm making a joke.
JP, thank you for joining us, JP. And my cousin Todd.
Hey, color in your beard across your lip, Todd. Color that in.
What? What are you talking about?
It's not complete.
I'm Stacey Johnson. Let's keep this conversation going on.
Don't blow a kiss at the camera.
I wasn't.
Please check us out on. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, SPORLITIKS.com. SPORLITIKS at YouTube. Please check us out on TikTok, Stephanie Stallworth's The Flow Television Network, Twitch, X, and we will see you next week. Please enjoy and watch the debate.
And don't join into the Trump live drinking game because you might die. Don't play that game.
Oh, I'm definitely gonna play that game tonight. Let's go and see. Let's get the turn up.
And Aguna, I just used that little clip. That's from a show that you watch, Atlanta Housewives. That's what Portia Williams told Kenya Moore.
Okay,
How
we
dare
don't
you
have time
speak
for this.
to you like that?
I'm going to end the show. Good night.
Good night, guys. Let's go watch this debate.
People love to see a rematch of a fight, and this is what this is. We'll talk to you next week, and we'll talk about what happened during this debate. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks for joining us.